Hello, welcome if you're new here. This is the talk show where I talk about comic books and other media in comic book adjacency. Sometimes I talk about the MCU. Most of the time I don't, because I do have an MCU podcast called MCU Crew. But sometimes I do discuss stuff. Today we're going to discuss some She-Hulk stuff. But before we get into that, the first section is the Backlog Attack Log, where I report back on comics that have been sitting on my shelf for way too long. I've been actually making a pretty great dent in my comic book backlogs. First off, I finally caught up with the new Punisher run by Jason Aaron. This book is unhinged in the greatest way. Now, I've read up to issue 5, but the reason I bring out issue 3 is actually just because I have to show you guys something before we even discuss this book. There's a very serious flashback segment with the Punisher kind of idolizing Captain America, and at one point even wearing a Captain America mask, which is why you have this child in a Captain America costume sitting upon this throne. But if you are a Venture Brothers fan like me, this shit made me just die laughing, because it looks like Hank in his Batman costume from the Venture Brothers. I couldn't take it seriously, because if you've watched the Venture Brothers, Hank as the Bat is utterly ridiculous. And you cannot tell me that our poor dear sweet Punisher here in the Captain America mask doesn't look the exact same. Even though the source material is pretty damn serious, it's almost impossible for me to take it seriously because of my relationship with Venture Brothers. I love that show, by the way, but I just had to touch on that before I got any further into it. So first of all, in this new Punisher run by Jason Aaron, the Punisher is the fist of the beast, and he's actually in charge of the Hand. Yes, that Hand from, if you're familiar with the Netflix series, from Daredevil, Defenders, oh god, Iron Fist, which I only recently watched and absolutely hated. He's basically a devotee to the god of murder, and he is in charge of an army of essentially ninjas who have been murdering people since the dawn of time for their blood red god. I didn't like the premise, and then the more I read it, the more it grew on me. Jason Aaron went as over the top, like edgy with it as you can, which is what I love from a Punisher book. Now, if you're wondering why the Punisher is working with the Hand, it's really simple. They bring back his wife from the dead, because the Hand can do that. And now that he has his wife back, he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I guess I will be the fist of the beast and be the fist of the Hand. And they all adore him, because who's killed more people than Frank Castle? Nobody. But the most sort of interesting part of the book to me has been there's been multiple flashbacks to Castle's childhood before the incident in the park that kind of resulted in him becoming the Punisher. This actually harkens back to when he's a kid, some of the issues he has as a child, some of the issues he has in school, and how he actually starts to become the Punisher ever since he was a little kid. The reason that the Hand is declining is because they haven't had a true leader for a very, very long time. Now, one would think that with the Hand's origins being like not Western centered, that this would come off as like they had to find a white person to lead all these Asian people. But they actually address that too. You'll have to forgive the quality of these pictures, because they were taken of the physical comics with my phone. I always have to give that addendum. As it says here, since the fall of the last known fist many years ago, I've been searching for the next incarnation. Others of my order looked to the dark masters of the martial arts, but I found myself led elsewhere. For centuries now, one land has shown a propensity for violence beyond all others. From genocide to slavery to shopping mall shootings. In today's world, if you seek the king of killers, you look to America. So the reason that Frank Castle is the leader of the Hand isn't because he's better than people from Asian countries. It's because he's worse, which actually makes a lot of sense in this case. You cannot deny that the international perspective of America is that we love guns. And the things that we deal with in this country, a lot of countries don't deal with that. When I was growing up and going to school in India, we were afraid of terrorist attacks, but we weren't afraid of school shootings. So my first job when I came here was to tutor in a high school. And when I saw that there were metal detectors and stuff everywhere, it was like stepping into a different world, because I had just graduated high school in a country where they didn't even search our bags. There were no metal detectors. There were nothing. To go from that to this environment was a little bit of a culture shock for me. So I actually love the explanation of why Frank Castle was found and chosen by her. She is not looking for any killer. She is looking for the king of killers, someone whose language is violence. And for that reason, she stumbles upon Frank Castle. Now, there are some parts of it that are really funny or like over the top. Like I said, edgy to me. They border on cringe. But overall, I do like the comic because it has Frank, who has a very sort of black and white view of morality, faced with being in charge of these ninjas whose morality is very different than his own. The thing I thought was brave and interesting was that when they bring his wife back, she still has all of the bullet wounds. Like, they're healed over, but you still see the depressions in her face, in her back. It's actually mildly disturbing. Like, you can see exactly how many times she was shot in the chest when she died in the park. And she kind of remembers the shooting, but not exactly. And Frank is trying to sort of keep her calm because she keeps having this nightmare where she goes to the park and this bad thing happens, and Frank is trying to convince her that didn't happen. He's trying to balance his own morals and his own sense of righteousness and being in charge of this murderous organization, the Hand, while also balancing that against wanting the very selfish thing that Frank Castle has always wanted, his wife and kids back. Now, where it gets super interesting is his main big bad for this story are Ares, who loves the art of war and is not happy that Frank is trying to end war by basically killing everybody that's a warmonger, which, if you read a lot of Punisher comics like I do, this is a very Frank Castle solution. So, in summation, I say check it out. I'm having fun with it. Maybe you will too. Okay, up next, I'm super late on this, but leave me alone. I've read up to 3 of these comics, but I'm choosing the first cover because it's my favorite. Look at this Poison Ivy cover. Look at this Poison Ivy cover. I really like this Poison Ivy comic. Well, there's things I like about it. There's things I dislike about it. What I like about it is, holy hot diggity damn. My God. Holy shit. But Ivy has always been one of my favorites of the Batman Rogues gallery. I really want to see her done well in something sometime. People often ask me, oh, if I could be like in the DCU, what character would I want to play her in the MCU? Poison Ivy would be a dream role. I understand I'm not a redhead, so I know there's going to be a lot of really racist people in my mentions telling me to fuck off to hell, but she's just my favorite character. First of all, the art is absolutely stunning, but it's basically Ivy went through this story arc where she was connected to the Green, and she had as much power as she's ever had, and then she was severed from that, and as part of that, she has this like cordyceps lumea sort of fungus that she can proliferate, and she believes that humanity has snuffed out and killed the earth, and the only way to save earth, which is a classic Poison Ivy arc, is to kill everything and return it to the plants. So she's it's told through a series of like letters, essentially, instead of dialogue bubbles, of her dressing up in various costumes and traveling across America, having these like very mundane interactions with people, everyone from farmers to people going to diners to like somebody that needs help with their garden. Some of them she likes, some of them she hates, and going through all these different sort of disguises to carry out this agenda of going across America and the rest of the planet, spreading this fungus that's going to kill everything and essentially return it to like nature. The kicker is she is also dying. The fungus is also taking over her body because she doesn't have the power that she used to have. So the reason that she's letting it kill her, and the reason that she's not trying to find a cure, is she says that she's also a human and she doesn't want to be a hypocrite. If she's going to have all the humans die to this fungus, she's going to die to it too, because that's the only way for the earth to be like healed again. I love this comic. The only downside of it is a lot of these letters, a lot of her voice and stuff is to, and I mean it is part of like the Pride collection, I should say, is to Harley Quinn. Now, Harley Quinn and Ivy, I think, work in the Harley Quinn animated series where she's like, "Oh, Ivy, you're so amazing," you know, where it's like this big joke, like, "Oh my God, girl power." But when you have this like serious freaking comic filled with Americana and like her wearing aviator sunglasses and murdering people, it's jarring for her to go to that to like, "Also, I fuck a clown." Like, she's got her eyeliner smeared down to here, and it's like, I just don't see the chemistry. I definitely read it in Harley's voice. It also doesn't help that they don't show you any backstory as to why she's with Harley. They don't actually put any of that in this comic. So you don't have any context for why she loves Harley. And so with that missing, it's a harder sell. That being said, I still like the comic. And I think if you are a fan of Ivy or you want to know more about her, if you're like, I don't know, I only really know her from that one movie where Uma Thurman played her, then check this out, because I think it's a great example of what a Poison Ivy movie could be. I personally love seeing her drive across the country and stop off in Idaho to terrorize a dairy farm before moving on to Montana to help this old lady with her garden while simultaneously murdering everyone else there. Like, it's actually a pretty great comic. I actually think that might be my pick of the week. Okay, next up in the backlog, I wasn't sure how to feel about this comic, but it's Xmen 92. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this comic, mostly because I wasn't sure if it was going to be just a copy of the old show or what was going on with it. But what it actually is, it's a telling of the current Marvel and X-Men lore through a 90s lens, which I actually like. Because if you're not up to date with everything that's happened post the Hickman run and what's happening now, this is a really good way to get caught up because it's told in the animated show's voice. They'll do things where it's like, "Wolverine, you know that because mutants are immortal now due to the power of the Five, that the Eternals are sure to be at war with us." Which is very much what the animated X-Men does, where it's like, "Wolverine, don't you know? Rogue can't touch people. That's why she has no love in her life. If we don't destroy the master mold now, then Trask will be able to create a sentinel capable of eliminating all of mutant kind," you know? And it's like, "Jubilation Lee, I had no idea your powers extended beyond being able to utilize kinetic blasts. It's true, I can actually reset reality, but I can only do it a few number of times, and I'm on my last reset. Therefore, if we're not able to defeat the Sentinels now, we may never be able to." Like, it does this really great lore drop thing. So if you want to get caught up with some of the X-Men lore and discover this new story about Jubilee that can do a hard reset on realities, check out X-Men 92. It's the most accessible of the current X-Men comics. If you're new to X-Men and you jump into any of the other runs, I'm so sorry. You're going to be completely lost. But X-Men 92 will get you in there really quickly. I also love, do you know those old like 90s kind of art things you would see in kids magazines? They actually have that in here where it's like, Jean's Joke Corner. What do you call Mr. Sinister that wins a race? Mr. Finishter. It's actually kind of printed like a 90s children's magazine or teen magazine. As much as I kind of disliked it going into it, I still found myself continuing to read it and continuing to subscribe to it. So I think there's something there that I like. This actually talks a lot about the Orcus protocol and stuff like that. But like I said, it does it in a really accessible way. And it does a really good job of nailing, like, telling it through the animated series lens. Okay. Girl. Don't get salty. Don't get salty. Don't get salty. I have been reading AXE Judgment Day, which is the Avengers X-Men Eternals event happening. As you can see, they've brought a Celestial back to life. So in this comic, to recap it for those of you that aren't aware of what's going on, Druig has taken over the Eternals and has declared war on the mutants because he wants to make a name for himself. So he basically manipulates the Eternal protocols or Celestial protocols to essentially acknowledge the mutant gene as a deviation. And therefore, because the mutants have conquered death and are immortal now, this would count as excess deviation, which basically clears him to commit genocide against the mutants. And thus, you have all of these giant eternal beings going up against the mutants in their sort of sovereign planet that they are on. In response, a splinter group of Eternals actually joins together with the Avengers to try to stop Druig. And the way they do this is by resurrecting a Celestial using some of Tony Stark's armature or design. The reason they use Tony Stark is Tony Stark has actually been in space and was imbued with the power cosmic. That's just a really short synopsis of the Iron Man comics. Love Iron Man. But basically, they create the Celestial, and the mutant or the Eternals that have broken off from the main Eternals, the reason that they broke off is they found that each time an Eternal is reborn, because I don't know if you've noticed, Eternals get 3D printed when they're killed. A human life is extinguished to make that happen. Something that nobody other than the Eternals knows. So that's why a bunch of Eternals are like, listen, human life is sacred. We don't want to do this anymore. Killing humans, innocent humans, for us to come back, this is not right for us. So the Eternals team up. Sorry, that was my phone. The Eternals team up with the Avengers and with Mr. Sinister, and they create this giant Celestial with the hopes of sort of stopping this war with the mutants. Unfortunately, at the very end, it backfires. I'm not going to tell you the details of why it backfires, but something has gone horribly awry at the end of the comic, which might make this a storyline I actually care about. We'll see. I'm going to keep you posted. I'm going to read number 3 and then tell you once and for all whether this is a hit or a miss. But there were a couple things I did like about it. One is it covers all sides of like how humans feel about Avengers, mutants, and even Eternals, and how a lot of them have turned against mutants because to them it's unfair that mutants have figured out the secret to living forever and they're stuck dying. The other thing I like is like the infighting within the mutants, because there are mutants living on Arakko that believe that they've been graced by God, that they're special, that they're different. And even when Captain America and the Avengers show up to help save the mutants from extinction, from shore extinction, there are, when they basically in their fighting, they create this giant tidal wave that's going to kill tons of people. And the Avengers are like, listen, we got to go help these people. And immediately they're like, see, look, they're abandoning us because that's what the Avengers were never with us. And you have people like Nightcrawler that are like, That's not fair. That's not what's going on. You people are crazy. So even though all mutant kind has come together in peace, there's still not real peace because ideologically they're not the same. I think this event it's one of their weaker events, one of the weaker Marvel crossovers. But in general, I feel like DC has always done crossovers better. I know that's a very controversial talking point because I get that, like, you know, Marvel has like the Infinity Saga and Civil War and the Secret Invasion, but like DC has Blackest Night and what's the other one I love? Flashpoint. Like Flashpoint was brilliant, and Blackest Night is probably the greatest comic book crossover ever made. I think people that cape for other Marvel events haven't read DC Comics, because if they had, they would know that DC slays when it comes to crossovers. They do an amazing job with them. I was really surprised with my disappointment in this one. I've been loving a lot of the newer Marvel Alien comics. I read the Dark Horse ones too, but I've actually been liking the new Marvel ones. So of course I picked up the Marvel Predator comic thinking, hey, your girl loves Alien, she likes Dread, maybe Predator will be banging. Girl, it was not. I think there's two things that are not clicking for me with it. The first is that the entire story is told from the POV of a girl whose parents are killed by a predator and who therefore wants to hunt down the specific predator that killed her parents, which is not, for me, a super compelling story personally. I think the biggest issue with this comic for me is it skips through all of the interesting parts. So it shows the predator killing her parents and she escapes, and then it flashes forward and she's an adult and she's hunting these predators down and she has all these scars. But it doesn't show you like how she developed those skills, what taking her first predator down was like. How did she begin tracking the predators? It skips past all that. How do you go from being a little kid to being a certified predator hunter? Am I being a hater, or are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Like, I think that's what's compelling about Prey. I want to see, how did she survive? How did she get away when she was only a kid? What was it like when she hunted down the first predator? How did she get this nasty scar across her neck and her face and her back? I want to see that. But they keep skipping past that, and she's just an adult, and there's not really any meaningful flashbacks other than watching her parents die. And that's just not as interesting to me. They have some world building in this where they show the predators going to other planets and killing other people, other races. They talk about predator hunting patterns. They talk about how they go to the same few planets every 10 years and how they copy each other's patterns. But like I said, we don't get to see this girl evolve from a 10-year-old girl to like a 20-year-old girl that's killing them. She even has predator armor, like Mandalorian style. She's got like a predator helmet and predator armor, but it doesn't tell you why she has that. Now, I understand this is just the first comic, but I'm just saying, doing that time jump, I feel like you should just include that. I want to know where she got the helmet from. If the first comic had ended with her getting a predator helmet, I would have been in this fucking comic hook, line, and sinker, despite the fact that the plot's been done a million times. Instead, what we get is this fast-forwarded version of kind of what Marvel does in every single one of their shows, where the female protagonist is immediately good at everything, and then we have a hard time relating to them. I need more. The first comic is really just, like I said, watching her parents die, and then she's an adult and she's killing predators. And I don't really care if they flash back to it in episode or in issue 5. I feel like we need to have that investment from the outset. I reviewed it on Bagged and Boarded, of this brother and sister who are on a ship and a xenomorph is killing everyone. And the first issue is that, like, her parents dying and her hiding in vents and trying to survive this xenomorph that's on the ship. And I think like you're immediately invested because that palpable fear is there. So I needed that from the outset. I kind of needed to like feel that investment or feel that sense of revenge. We don't even spend a lot of time with her family before they die. So it's really hard to care about revenge, if that makes sense. Especially because we don't see any of the hardship she deals with after they die. X-Men Legends, this takes place between Hulk number 181 and the giant size X-Men number 1. And it's basically, how do I describe it? Wolverine is basically working for Department H, and he is in the division where he is tracking down super humans with super abilities for Department H. This was like interesting because the tagline is, it's new stories of the past that shape the future. And I love that premise, and I hope we do more thought exercises like this. I hope we are like, we're okay with going back to that like golden era of X-Men comics and telling stories of things that happened in that space that might potentially have an impact on what's going on now, just because I feel like that was in some ways a better era than the one we're currently in. So this one was fun, and it just felt really classic, really good. It gets to the nitty gritty of why Logan is so cool. He's a short, angry, hairy Canadian man that is just like, listen, bub. And I really liked it. If you want an action-y comic with punchy one-liners and the pacing of an old school X-Men comic, definitely go back through and read X-Men Legends. It kind of fills in some of the gaps of X-Men lore, so just give it a shot. Okay, the next comic, I'm so sorry, I talk about this comic every single week. This is going to be full-on spoilers for The Closet, so don't complain to me later if you know, like, because I'm just going to spoil everything. Like, just going to spoil everything. Every single week I discuss The Closet because it's just becoming my favorite book. First of all, look at this fucking cover. Look at this fucking cover. Okay? Things that happen in this book are like too real. I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to crack it open. I know, I'm cracking it open. And I'm going to read some of it to you because this comic is so uncomfortable. Like, it's supposed to be cosmic horror, but at places it just becomes like real life horror, okay? I'm going to read this to you. Things have been rough lately. Every night that I let my guard down for half a fucking second, like I stopped watching myself, stopped performing the part of the good husband, I trip over something, or I'm not interested in what she's saying enough. Not asking her questions, you know, like I don't care. But it's all the same fucking shit. She's angry at the same fucking coworkers, and they're doing the same fucking thing to get under her skin over and over. And at a certain point, you know what? I'm not fucking interested. I don't want to hear any of that. I've heard it all before. I just want to read a book or dick around on my phone. But she can see that, and she calls me out on it, and then I get upset, which just makes it all worse. This man has been through some, because listen, if you have not been with another person, if you have not experienced that at some point in time, if you at no point in time have been like, God, my partner just complains about the same 5 things and I don't want to listen today, I don't know what fake world you live in, because this is like the number one argument for those of you that haven't been here for previous episodes. This kid has this fucking thing in his closet that's like this like all black Cthulhu, like not even Cthulhu, xenomorph, long appendage looking shadow thing with these big teeth that follows him out of the closet, and it sits on his chest every night. He's only 4 years old. So he freaks out every fucking night, okay? And I was like, there's two stories going on. There's the story of this man who's trying to make things work with his wife. Every single issue, we learn more about why they're fighting, and a new layer gets added. This is a masterclass in storytelling, by the way. It's a masterclass in show don't tell, too. Like, every single issue adds a new layer of, oh, so this is what's going on. But then, parallel to that, you have this little kid that's dealing with this demon in his closet, right? And I was like, how do these two stories intersect? And I said that last time, y'all. This man, as we found out in the last issue, this is just going to become a watch along. This man was cheating on his wife because he was bitter about the fact that he was a stay-at-home dad and his wife was working, okay? So at the park he went to, he started to get interested in this other like young girl. And he even says it wasn't even that he wasn't happy with his marriage. He just liked that like this younger, hotter, like babysitter was into him. And so she starts giving him like, they start going out for drinks. It progresses to something more than that. She makes him mixtapes. They take Polaroids when they're together. She like sends him cute Polaroids of her like posing and stuff. And he keeps all of this in a box. And in the middle of the night, he goes to his son's closet and he looks through the box, because he's getting off on the fact that this hot girl who's younger than him likes him. The kid wakes up in the middle of the night, sees this dude hunched over in his closet, and starts flipping out, because if you were a little kid and you saw something weird in your closet in the middle of the night, what do you do? What do? You scream, right? So the kid sees in the middle of the night at like 1 a.m., sees this dark figure hunched over in the closet. He starts freaking out. The dad goes to comfort the kid. The mom comes in and is like, what's going on? Turns on the lights. She sees the photos and she's like, what the fuck is this? And guys, I'm sorry. My brain rebooted like 6 times. I fucking love this comic. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know how this is going to resolve, but I think my theory is that this monster, he talks about how he wants to go to Portland and reset, right? He keeps saying like, yeah, I cheated on my wife, but I'm going to go to Portland and everything's going to reset. This old man tells him this, there's no such thing as a fresh start, because whatever you didn't resolve is underneath and it's metastasizing like a fucking cancer. And he was like, trust me, I know. Like, because he has cancer. And it's one of these things where it's like this demon in your home that you've created by clinging. He himself is clinging to the past, because he even talks about how he misses that attention and he misses like the way that woman made him feel. But he still claims that, like, no, I'm devoted to my wife. And it's like, are you though? Like, he is carrying that demon along. Like, it's him. That's why this demon is following them to Portland, because guess what? He's not fixing his fucking marriage. He's not fixing his home problems. He's a monster to his kid. And every single person he complains to about it, where he's like, yeah, well, my kid's fucking scared of the closet. He's just scared of fucking monsters. He's a fucking idiot. Everyone's like, dude, your son is 4. He's 4 years old. I've been watching very carefully. The demon like sits on his chest in the middle of the night and like snarls in his face. And to me, it's like anxiety. Like, I think the demon is this kid's anxiety. He can pick up on his parents fighting and it's destroying him inside. And because he's a 4-year-old and doesn't know how to process those feelings, I think like it takes the form of this like little dark demon thing that follows him around. But I wonder if it's like his fear or his anxiety personified. Who knows with this book? All right. Today's Joyless Nerd Moment is brought to you by, let me see here. What's her name? Sunspot? Is she Sunspider? Yes, Sunspider. This tweet got 12,000 likes. And it's what in the fuck? And it's a new Spider in the Spider-Verse who has EDS. And this became like a very controversial sort of point, in that a lot of people thought this was stupid and didn't really make any sense. And other people thought it was great and representative. What's crazy to me is like, y'all know this is a side character, right? He won a contest for designing their Spider-Sona. And that's why they were featured in the comic. It's not that there was this crazy secret agenda going on. It was literally like someone came up with this and then they won a competition and then it was in the thing. Now, if you think the design is fucking stupid, we're talking about a Spider-Verse comic. If you don't like it, the comic is so easy to avoid. But why go out of your way to read it and shit on it? That's the part that doesn't make sense to me, because here's the thing. There's a lot of really stupid characters in the Spider-Verse. And you know what we do? We just ignore them. For the record, I'm not saying this character is stupid. It's not my jam. Design-wise, it's not my jam. But that being said, there's so many Spider characters in the Spider-Verse that I think are meh. And I just kind of keep it pushing. I don't understand this fixation on this one, except, oh wait, I do understand the fixation. It's because people are like, oh, Marvel's pushing this agenda and look at this and da-da-da-da-da. But here's the positive side of it that like no one's talking about. And here's the positive side of it. There's a lot of people that are like, how the hell is she swinging around doing all this stuff and then she's in a wheelchair? And this actually opened up a really great conversation, a wider conversation about EDS and how a lot of people are not always in a wheelchair. Sometimes they're ambulatory, other times they're in a wheelchair. Like, being in a wheelchair does not mean that you have no use of your legs. And I think this is like a really common misconception. Some people think clearly if you're in a wheelchair, you're paralyzed from the waist down. And the reality is that for a lot of people, that's just not true. This comic actually started this wider conversation of why this character is able to make use of their legs and swing around the town and do all of that stuff. And if you actually look closely in her design, her wheelchair is actually webbed to her back. So it is always with her. So I wish people had more grace to have these types of conversations. I'm not trying to be like, how do I describe it? Attacking it, because the account that tweeted it was called Weaponized Nerd Rage. So why are we surprised? But I do feel bad about the people like just asking questions and being shit on, because I think like these kind of conversations have to happen. I feel like people are afraid to ask questions or have discussions now because it almost always turns into like, well, how do you not know versus, well, actually, you know, I don't think there's a lot of space online to have these kinds of conversations anymore. If I didn't know anything about EDS and then I were to make a review of this comic and say, personally, I just think it's silly or ridiculous that she can use her legs when she's swinging around, but then she sits down and she's in a wheelchair. I don't think that somebody who makes that statement deserves to immediately be branded as ableist and a piece of shit, because that could be a valid review if you have no clue what EDS is. I kind of wish we opened up more of these sort of conversations to be learning moments and not just, clearly you're a hateful piece of shit and I hate you. In fact, this is my joyless nerd moment of the day. It's something that has made me dislike or actually shy away from talking about comic books and comic book media online for a long time. It's why I took my show offline. I took this show offline for a really long time because, and even now, there's days where I'm like, maybe I should not do this anymore. Maybe I should stick to something else, just watch Hell's Kitchen online like everybody else does. Because it sucks when you say something like, I didn't like Miss Marvel, and people are like, okay, so you hate brown people. Maybe somebody just didn't like it. And you have people that are like, this is getting review bombed, so we have to go and give it 5 stars. And I'm like, is it actually getting review bombed, or was it just poorly reviewed? And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, chat, because I don't think the result for something getting 1 star is for everybody to go give it 5 stars. I think the result is to remove bogus reviews, identify bogus reviews and remove them. Would I give Miss Marvel 1 star? No. Is it 5 stars? Absolutely not. I think that's exactly why Black Panther is such a triumph, because Black Panther is good. Into the Spider-Verse is good, and it's not good for a movie with a black protagonist. It's just good. You don't even have to use that fucking modifier. No one is giving Into the Spider-Verse a pity 5 stars. It's not a pity thing. I kind of am adverse to this general vibe of, if something has poor reviews out of the gate, or if you don't like it, it's because you hate women or you hate brown people. If you give Miss Marvel 1 stars and you say, I freaking hate this Muslim, okay, yeah, you have issues. But if you are like, actually, I give this 2 stars because it just wasn't very good, hopefully I've managed to articulate myself some way here. I'm probably going to regret saying this, and I'm probably definitely going to regret putting it on YouTube. And I'm going to read, to be fair, I have not read these before. I just found them. I haven't read them. So I don't know what is contained herein, but I'm going to read some bad She-Hulk reviews and react and see if there's actually anything I agree with. You don't know. I might agree with something. We'll see. Okay. This first one is from Screen Rant by Craig Elvey. Okay. I'm just going to read it and we're going to react. That's what this segment is. Okay. Deal with it. Don't expect Bruce Banner to recover from his MCU Phase 3 slump anytime soon, especially if Marvel's She-Hulk SDCC trailer is any indication. Whether it be Edward Norton in 2008's The Incredible Hulk or Mark Ruffalo in 2012's The Avengers, Bruce Banner's Hulk always felt dangerous during Phase 1. He was the villain of Phase 1, one could say. That tide-turning, I'm always angry moment during the Battle of New York still ranks among the Jolly Green Giant's very best MCU scenes. Even when Hulk became less of a novelty, Avengers Age of Ultron, Thor Ragnarok successfully added new hues to that intimidating aura. Then along came a Titan. Okay, so you're already wrong. In Thor Ragnarok, the Hulk was played for comedic relief. At one point, he even jumps out of a plane and you think he's going to make this big heroic entry, and instead he face plants on the Rainbow Bridge, is played for a joke at multiple points during the series. So like his descent into being more of a comedic relief character came prior to the scene I know he's going to talk about in Thanos. I think some of that is because the Hulk at its core is actually a very depressing story, and it's a very dark story. We've never had a superhero talk about suicidal ideation before. And definitely not attempted suicide. But Hulk has done this in a movie. He literally said that he tried to shoot himself and the Hulk spit the bullet out, which is a direct reference to a comic book panel where he takes pills. This is a very dark character that is constantly struggling for control and agency in his own body, which leads him to be enraged, right? Him saying, I'm angry all the time, the moment he says that is beautiful, because it's not about him giving up. It's about him embracing that his life is unfair and that he has every reason to be angry. It lets us know that he's always holding back that tide. And I will never get over the fact, I've talked about this so many times, that he minds his own business and tries to create an environment where he won't lose control. He is like running a free clinic, I think somewhere in India, and spending his time there, helping kids, helping people. And they drag him out of that hole to use him as a weapon when it's convenient, all while they're making plans of how to kill him if the next time he turns, they can't bring him under control. But they're still going to have him turn because they need him. It's just that most Marvel films, I feel like since Guardians of the Galaxy, have started to go the route of being comedies. There are some that are outliers, but because all of the comedy films have been so successful, we're seeing more and more of them that are really just played off for comedic value, witty one-liners, and telling a story like the Hulk's when we know that comedies do better is really difficult. Hulk spent the vast majority of Avengers Infinity War fearfully hiding behind Bruce Banner, a spectacular low point for the ex-strongest Avenger. The Hulk slander barely improved in Avengers Endgame. Not only would the MCU insult Bruce Banner by developing his smart Hulk persona entirely off-screen, okay, actually I agree with that, but the transition effectively flushed every single Hulkism from Banner's personality. Only a pea-colored CGI Mark Ruffalo remained, with none of the compelling duality that makes Hulk such a timeless Marvel hero. Ruffalo's next MCU appearance comes in She-Hulk, where Bruce Banner's lawyer cousin accidentally inherits his blood and develops a green side all of her own. Bruce, still in smart Hulk mode, takes it upon himself to train Jennifer Walters in a safe, isolated location where no civilians are at risk. He needn't have bothered. Jennifer controls her rage perfectly in stressful situations, tosses a boulder further than her more experienced cousin, and embarrasses Banner during balance exercises. I don't think she embarrasses him. Jennifer can't resist pointing out she's nailing every challenge Bruce throws her way, and the Avenger concedes, feeling a little envious, not that you'd know, over her natural talent. So soon after Hulk's Avengers Infinity War embarrassment and the bespectacled makeover of Avengers Endgame, here's Jennifer Walters instantly mastering all the tricks Bruce Banner spent years struggling with. The control, the strength, the poise. Jennifer makes them look effortless as her cousin looks on, understandably vexed. Okay, I also don't really agree with that. I think what they were trying to show, but they didn't do a good job of, is that they're very different characters. Where Hulk could probably rip She-Hulk in half, but She-Hulk can control her rage better, and has more like tactics under her belt, if that makes sense. She's not as bulky as the Hulk. She's more flexible than the Hulk. She might even be a little faster than the Hulk. The Hulk has more raw power and is pulling his punches for that entire exercise. I think that scene was meant to illustrate how they're different. If that scene led you to believe that Hulk couldn't absolutely turn Jen into pudding, you're an idiot. It was heavily implied in multiple places there. And in fact, his restraint is so strong in that scene that while she's flipping out and throwing punches at him, he's still calm. He still has the other guy under control. Whereas she doesn't. Like, she gets to inhabit that skin completely. He has the other guy in his back pocket. And even though she's been a huge butt to him, he manages to keep that shit under wraps. Because I think if the other guy really came out, he would have killed her. Light work. I do think like them doing yoga poses and stuff together is supposed to show that like the Hulk is bigger than her. Of course her balance is better. He's twice the size of her. How would he even be able to wrap his legs around his forearm in that yoga pose they reference? How would he even do that? I feel like that scene was to illustrate for people that seem to think, oh, this is just a female Hulk. I feel like that was to say, hey, it's not a female Hulk. It's a completely different character with a completely different power set. This actually ties back into the comic we were reading earlier, I discussed earlier today, Xmen Legends. When the Hulk gets angrier, he gets stronger. When he hulks out, it's like if you hit him hard, he gets madder and madder and madder. and madder and madder and angrier and angrier and angrier and this is why World War Hulk is so enticing to people, and Planet Hulk is so enticing as a storyline. Jen doesn't really do that. Jen turns big and green, but she doesn't Hulk out. You know what I mean? She doesn't go full roar, smash shit, I'm gonna kill everybody. And this makes her more versatile. This makes her stronger in some ways, but it makes Banner stronger in other ways. And I don't understand how people can't really see that. I think the only scene that didn't jive for me in that montage, or whatever you want to call it, is when she says, oh, I can handle my rage, and because I do it infinitely more than you do. That was the part where I was like, girl, you can say that to a lot of people, but probably not Bruce Banner. That line would have come across so much better delivered to any of the people she works with. I watched episode 2 yesterday, and I get the same vibe from that, where they have to like, God, look at all the shit I have to deal with because I'm a woman. And to me, I hate when Marvel does that, because it's so gross. Unfortunately, people lap that shit up. They love it. Like, you don't have to say it. You don't have to look at the camera and be like, look at how I have to work with a bunch of old white men. Like, we see that you have to work with a bunch of old white men. I understand I'm in a male-dominated industry, and that does come with its own set of challenges. I feel like there's so many more meaningful ways to express that story, because the story changes depending on like that sort of POV, right? I think the parts where they nail it are the parts where they don't really have to tell you like, they don't have to explicitly look in the camera and be like, look, guys, sexism. For example, the scene where She-Hulk exits the bar and immediately has these people harassing her, and these guys harassing her. That would never happen if it was a male character on screen. But the realities of being a girl outside of a bar, kind of half naked, that context changes drastically than if you're the Hulk and you rip your clothes. This show was in places, I feel like, does that, where we're kind of seeing what's happening and we see that it's unfair and we see that it's not right. But then the show has to be like, okay, we have to really clearly, explicitly state this because we've figured out that most of our audience is idiots. And then, let's be honest, in some cases that's true. I've disagreed with most of the paragraphs of this article. Jennifer Walters enjoying an easier Hulk transition pulls directly from Marvel comic lore. She-Hulk's powers and abilities vary between runs, but Jennifer is generally weaker than Bruce Banner because she only receives secondhand exposure to gamma radiation. On the plus side, this means she retains a far greater degree of control and intelligence. And as a keen martial artist, Jennifer also brings the kind of discipline and physical prowess Bruce Banner lacked upon first turning green. These details help explain why Tatiana Maslany's She-Hulk doesn't rage out when Bruce makes her angry, why she's superior at yoga, and why she's tearing through training tasks like She-Hulk tore through Johannesburg. She-Hulk's problem isn't Jennifer having an easier time than Bruce Banner, but how she's compared so favorably against Bruce Banner without any obvious flaws. She-Hulk's SDCC 2022 trailer. So this is just based off the trailer. Shouldn't need to make Hulk look bad. She-Hulk can do better vibe that makes Bruce Banner seem much sillier than he needs to. She-Hulk could have established Jennifer's expert anger control without having her embarrass Bruce repeatedly. If you get this fired up over trailers. People ask me a lot, like, how do you feel about this trailer? And usually my most spicy response is, it looked okay. I don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters. I might watch it on video on demand. And this is why. Because just because you see something in a trailer doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I swear I have this weird rogue memory of Hulk bursting out of the Hulkbuster suit in a trailer for Endgame. But I don't think that actually happened. And I was like screaming. I was so excited. And then I saw the movie and I was like, girl, he never busted out of the Hulkbuster. I felt like I had been robbed. So after that, I don't know why you would put so much stock into a trailer where you write this long rant about how the Hulk has been insulted. First of all, it's the She-Hulk show. So they're not going to be like, look at how much better the Hulk is than She-Hulk. But second of all, everything this person took the time to sit here and complain about and rage about, all of it is basically addressed in the show. Let's read the next one. I hope this one came out after the like I said, I didn't read these beforehand. So hopefully this one came out like after the show aired. My apologies for not finding one that was more recent. But I still feel like a lot of my critiques of the criticism hold up. Hollywood and Toto? Girl, I don't know what this website is. Woke, shrill She-Hulk, a hard sell for MCU fanatics. 21,000 upvotes. What? She-Hulk Attorney at Law reveals its mission statement in the middle of episode 1. Jennifer Walters' cousin Bruce Banner cautions her about controlling her anger. Her answer says, well, everything. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I'll get called emotional or difficult or might just literally get murdered. The show's woke meter just hit red, and we haven't gotten to the empowering scene where a colleague replaces Jen's high heels with more sensible pumps. So this is what I dislike about this article already, and a lot of this like rage thing. Notice how he's like, the woke meter just hit red. Why don't you have an actual critique of that? Like, my critique wasn't necessarily that the sentence or the paragraph was wrong. I don't think that paragraph in and of itself is a bad paragraph. I just think when this said to Bruce Banner, it seemed ridiculous, right? I'm also going to say something else that is just very controversial. So get prepared to get your panties in a knot, because I love doing this. This shit coming from a white woman doesn't mean a lot. Here's why. Brown and black women get called combative way more than white women do. Like, her saying this actually made me fucking laugh. I know that sounds like really extreme, but they're the ones that made my life hell. Like, I used to work with this girl named Michaela. She made my life hell over things like this. I wouldn't even be rude to her. I wouldn't even be combative with her. She would always cry. She always weaponized her tears. I came into work yesterday and I said hello to Jasmine and she didn't say hello back. And then I asked her if she could take the trash out on her way out, and she said, my shift ends at 5, and she just left. And honestly, like, that was like, who talks to someone like that? And they would be like, Jasmine, you need to apologize. And I was like, my shift ends at 5. I was not being mean. I said it really nicely. I already clocked out. I'm sorry. She cut that entire part off and made it sound like I threw her into the garbage. And so many of these women that go around going, girl power, it's so hard being a woman in this industry. Oh my gosh. They're the ones that terrorize minorities in these industries. I will just say this line coming from her made me laugh, because whatever she deals with, I promise you, her brown counterparts deal with it 10 times as worse. And I'm sure there's people in my chat right now that have to struggle with being the agreeable black man. Because if you're a black man and you show any shred of upset, you will be labeled as combative, as scary, as anything aggressive. But we're not ready to have that conversation. Okay, I'm going to keep going, even though this person's article is annoying. Anyone wondering how woke the MCU will go in phase 4 gets their answer here. If I took a shot every time this grognard typed woke, I would be on the floor by now. What's missing? Laughs for one, and the sense that we're itching to spend more time with this professional victim. Is that on anyone's bingo card? We've got woke, we've got professional victim. The first episode deposits Jen in the courtroom, but before long, she's breaking the fourth wall to explain how she became part lawyer, part superhero. That's a tick taken directly from the comic book source material, but it's hardly innovative in 2022. Still, it plays into the loose comic tone defining the Disney Plus property. A freak accident while driving with cousin Bruce, permanently stuck between his human and Hulk persona, transformed Jen into She-Hulk. Bruce tries to caution her about her new reality, leaning on his own life experiences in the process. She's a superhero now and she better get used to it. Jen isn't like Bruce, though. She has more control of how she transforms, and she lacks the uncontrolled rage that made the original Hulk so much fun. Can we go back to that, MCU overlords, please? But that character exists, and that's the Hulk. If they had made her exactly like that, then your stupid ass would have complained that she's just a carbon copy of the Hulk. So they made her different, and now your stupid ass is complaining that she's not the same. The end indicator of episode 2 is that we're cruising towards World War Hulk. I do not know what other thing to tell you, baby cakes. So it's just very strange that you're like, well, why she doesn't have any of the things that the Hulk does? Why can't she be like that? Because then she would be the Hulk. Also, breaking the fourth wall might not be innovative in 2022, but it's still a completely valid way of storytelling. It's just a different style. And it is innovative in the context of Disney properties. It's silly and rarely comical. It reveals Jen to be both brittle and unpleasant. Maslany proved her chameleon-like gifts in Orphan Black, but even she can't make Jen appealing early in the series. She's not Captain Marvel level smug, but it's close. Bruce fares badly too. Ruffalo is always solid, but his character's unwillingness to see Jen's arguments plays out like a lame narrative shortcut. There must be tension here, therefore Bruce is thick-headed to the core. No, I think it's that Bruce is right. What does he say that's wrong? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I don't feel like he says anything that's incorrect. So there's no reason for him to agree with her point of view. And most of his prophecies are proven true in the second episode. He literally says things like, you're not going to be able, you can't just go back to being a normal person. Yes, I can. He's right. Hey, it's going to be difficult for you to balance your real life against your superhero life. Yes, I can. He's right. We do get 2 superhero style moments. One involves Bruce and Jen brawling over one of their many arguments. It's fine. Nothing more. The other, a brief appearance by future villain Jamila Jamil, who looks ridiculous and barely makes an impression. Okay, I will say I agree with this knuckle dragger on that assessment. Jamila looks crazy in this show. Her hair, her costume, who are you? She looks crazy. If she didn't come back in this series, I wouldn't miss her. I am invested in the Abomination storyline, though. That's Titania, an influencer slash supervillain. We'll be seeing more of her soon. Those sweating over the troubling CGI can find some issues here, but it's more than acceptable for a TV series and no longer a distraction. There's plenty of meaty material here, from a superhero balancing her work-life balance to Jen's future mission, defending supervillains. The industry that collectively wants to cancel Donald Trump out of the public sphere wants us to cheer on an attorney protecting super thugs. This is the same person that's complaining everything's political. Yo, I wish I could have my head that far up my ass. I would have a career on OnlyFans. These are the same people that are like, why is everything political? And then they're also the people that are like, politics. Oh my God. What does one have to do with the other? What does Donald Trump have to do with She-Hulk, attorney at law? We don't know the sweep of a series yet, nor the full measure of the main characters. She-Hulk, attorney at law is off to a lousy start any way you look at it. Can't believe I sat here and read that. That was ridiculous. Why do I do this show? Why do I put myself through it? This has been bagged and boarded. I'm not ThatBronzeGirl, and I'm sure with this video I've somehow managed to piss everyone off. See you probably never again. The last issue of Bagged Imported. Goodbye.